For those of you who followed my work in the cinema space, you would know that I like to keep a wide eye, not just in what's available in multiple different genres and name prominence, whether it be maybe major commercial releases or smaller indie pictures. I like to take a global perspective in regards to the content that I cover, especially when it crosses genres. And we have such a case with this today that I'm generally curious. It's a bit of a debut in that respect with Blades in the Darkness. I kind of like the name, though again, maybe under the horror territory, this could go a number of ways that might hit upon some content thresholds. We'll see. I'm admittedly more of a thriller guy, but I can't resist a good scary tone that is more than present in the horror scene, though again, I do have my points of contention of approach on certain projects. I do choose the full pictures of what I entertain meticulously. But I like the name. The poster's kind of endearing, and as a release, again, I think it boasts an advantage in maybe an introduction. It's a German horror thriller film, and I've covered a couple, maybe not a couple. Recently, I don't think I've spotlighted German fare as much as I have maybe other film markets worldwide in years past. I did recently with that Ach du Scheiße, I think is the name of it. Or Ach, I forget the pronunciation, I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, but that was a German movie, and that was more along like the comedy lines, a comedy thriller, I think, from what I remember. Blades in the Darkness is again going for the more of that horror tone, and the poster looks pretty intriguing. I mean, I like the illustration to it. I'm not as familiar with the talent behind it. Of course, most of these are German actors I'm imagining, or maybe it's from some other territories around Europe, close to Germany, perhaps. So maybe, again, it's a fresh debut in a number of respects, but it's kind of interesting at least to look at. I couldn't get the best picture on the synopsis, at least presently going in. I didn't pay that close of it. I don't want to say I didn't pay that close of attention. Here's one. Because I looked on IMDb and I'm like, it's not very substantial. I'm going to pull the horror brain synopsis. I'll just read this verbatim, I guess. Again, I like to get a good baseline of pictures going in on what I'm judging, and if you want the same, let me provide that for you, according to them. Matia, just a teenager, is harassed by his playmates. In an attempt to escape, he hides inside an abandoned bunker. In that spooky building, Matia will be the first to discover something scary and unthinkable that will change his whole life. Well, first introduction to horror, kid. I don't know. Is it Matia or Matia? Again, I apologize if I'm butchering pronunciations here, and I welcome clarification down below. Maybe some of you who are German viewers, or at least you're familiarized with German name pronunciation. Again, I do try. I mean, I studied Spanish in school, not German, so forgive me. But I do, again, like I said, like to get a bit of a global perspective on cinema. And, other artistic endeavors. I mean, some of you know for how much I pay attention in the music space. We've taken to a couple German artists on this channel as well. So I've introduced myself to at least other strokes of their artistic market, but not the horror territory yet, till now. And Blade in the Darkness, in that respect, is an original debut. I believe this is also being carried in terms of wider distribution. In fact, I think this is how I found out about it. If you do wish to entertain the project upon hearing it together, as we will in a minute, I like the scope of it too, the hidden bunker type film. Is this going to be like a confined thriller horror hybrid? I would love that. This is being cast, I believe. Let me make sure on this, because I don't think it's a definitive, but I thought I saw it in passing. Maybe it's just the trailer I saw. I was going to say maybe it got YouTube distribution. I might have that wrong, though, because there are a couple smaller films available. Yeah, just a couple. There's actually a lot available on YouTube for specific channels. I don't remember if Blades in the Darkness was one. No, just the trailer presently. All right, I'm not sure where I'll be getting a wider distribution, let alone an international one yet. But if this project is of any, any regard, that's a bad word to say, I think. If this project is worth any consideration on part of a large viewing audience, I do hope to perhaps, if I can, amplify presentation to the best extent that is possible. So, with Blades in the Darkness, let me offer you my thoughts on it. Hang on. Now, let's see for ourselves. And again, this will be a premiere engagement on the German horror film landscape. In some part, it does have the appearance of a smaller project. If you're somebody that pays attention to the indie, smaller film market, You can see clear indicators in the cinematography and the scoped presentation of the film that paves lines of adjacency. But on premise and promise, this film actually looks enjoyable. Good lighting choices. I thought that was an ocean for a minute. It's not, but... Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'm more a thriller guy. I can't resist a good scary tone or narrative, but when it comes to the gory violence, usually, I got my thresholds. I've tried apparently, recent times have birthed knowledge of this to me in that respect. I apparently will take great steps for you to offer credible takes and informed perspectives. And I tried this very recently. I've shied away from experiencing overly gory films over the past. And there's a couple projects I've heard that maybe are put along that categorization that I've been okay with. Like, let's say, for example, I watched *Malignant* very recently. That was quite good, and it had some gorier moments. But, on the other hand, I think this is more so because of how sadistic the project was. I tried watching *Hellraiser* for the first time. I got through the first one, looking away several times, and I got about halfway through the second one before I passed out. So, I've got a threshold in mind. If this film... So, let me phrase it this way before I enter back into the discussion on *Blades in the Darkness*. I will inquire pretty frequently through different content reviews to get a good measure, especially when it comes to horror projects, on what I can expect, just to make sure I don't pass out again, because apparently I take great risks to deliver, and that was the purpose, in fact, of why I humored *Hellraiser*. I wouldn't have watched it if it hadn't been, bizarrely putting this, I guess, in wording, if it hadn't been for you to offer a credible take. Especially since that got a reboot. I haven't even covered the reboot yet. Part of me doesn't even want to, because I'm not interested in that project at all. Just after the response my body had to that movie. I apparently would go to great lengths to give you informed takes. That's what that experience taught me. And for me, when it comes to horror projects, I oftentimes will consult content guides to measure how far does a project go, just to understand what I'm engaging with as a work. And it's not the only condition I have in airing horror releases. I've also said, many times on this channel, I come from a Christian perspective. So the supernatural stuff, especially the mainstay of it these days, when you get the dark, occult type feelings. Paranormal I'm looser on, but the first couple categorizations I just provided to you, that's usually a deterrent for me. Usually, with very minor exception. So, to the extent that *Blades in the Darkness* goes, I'll engage maybe a review to better understand, because, there's some, at least, violent hints towards the end, that's for sure. Realization-wise, like I said, there's key indicators when you watch a work that remind you a lot of other like-minded projects in the smaller film sphere. There are traits. They're subtle indicators, but they are visible if you're perhaps looking for them. Maybe you're not even, and maybe if you're as used to the scene as I am, they just stand out to you. I think the film, perhaps on its hinting that there's a historical foundation, or at the very least the story's set up that way, gives it a nice approach. I'd be curious to, because I'm not as familiarized of German culture or particular German history. Maybe in world history, in connections to that, yes, but not necessarily German specific. So when they reference the People's Socialist Republic of Albania, for someone like me who has obviously much to learn, I admit that readily, it adds a level of layered foundation that I find quite enticing, where it sort of mirrors maybe real stories and adds a fresh atmosphere. Maybe fresher. Fresh maybe isn't the right word. A grander presence to the film. There's, again, more that it's working off of it. It feels like a more substantiated picture in delivery. Beyond that, again, like I said, I think the cinematography was fine, especially the lighting choices. It's quite a dark movie. I love the color tones of it. It's particularly ominous to watch. The lighting effects, again, on those light bulbs, I thought for a minute that was, maybe it's just part of the lighting I have here at the house, but I guess it's a rock wall. At first I thought it was like a forest river or something. I'm like, that's actually kind of cool. Like, is one of the light bulbs in the background going to glisten? It's not. It's not like a paranormal presence on an ocean lake or something. Promise-wise, I'm open to humoring the movie. Again, like I said, I'm going to consult a content review to know how far this goes, you know, if I choose to entertain it. But I'm interested. Like I said, I haven't experimented much with content in the German film market, and I'd be curious to. I'd love to hear maybe the same respect is shared with you down below on entertaining a first look on Blade in the Darkness, or Blades. I kind of like the name, but Blades is so on point, at least the ending of that. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the discussion if you wish to disclose your perspective. I'm curious, like I said, you know, I'll maybe consult some reviews, and I'll have to find out if this is going to get a wider distribution into the West. I don't know. We'll see in terms of like US availability, maybe it'll be on streaming or something. I'm open to it, you know. We'll see what I think if I choose to entertain the project. On first promise, I see maybe a fun engagement of a horror film. Right? Time will tell. Maybe the trailer isn't necessarily as good as the film, or the trailer might be better than the film, actually, is I guess what I'm meaning to say. But, you know, don't count it out, perhaps. You know, at least on chance. And I think Blades in the Darkness might be perhaps a fun watch, at least in some respects. Certainly an extensive one in its coverage and its story construction, I find, to some extent, endearing. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.